Hi, everyone. Welcome. We'll give it just a moment for everyone to enter the webinar, and then we'll get going here with our session. It's great to see so many people popping into the room. Such an important topic. And there's a lot of interest in this one. All right. So we will get started here, and we are recording today. So if you have to leave early or you want to share this with a friend or go back and watch anything later, that will be available to you on Forte's website. So welcome, everybody. My name is Tony Phelan, and I'm a program manager for MBA programs at Forte. Thank you for joining us today for Conquer Your Career, the International Student Career Search. This event is part of Forte's Conquer Your Career virtual series, which offers an inside look at what it's like to be a woman with an MBA working in various fields. So let's get started. As you may already know, there are unique opportunities and challenges associated with an international job search. So during this session, we will hear from women business leaders who have successfully created careers far away from home. These MBA alums will share their experiences, insights, and strategies for navigating the nuanced complexity of a global career. Let's get started. Okay, we will meet our panelists here. So first, I would like to turn it over to Oluwatosin. She is a finance manager at Amazon. Oluwatosin, over to you.
Thank you, Tony. Hello, everyone. So my name is Oluwatosin. I had my bachelor's degree in systems engineering from University of Lagos, Nigeria. And I just concluded my MBA from the Olin Business School at Washington University in St. Louis. And while I was in the business school, I was selected as a finalist for the 40 Eddie Hunt Inspiration Award, which highlighted my dedication to advancing women in business leadership. In business school as well, I founded the Christian Fellowship Club, and I served as the vice president of the Olin Women in Business Club and the Olin Finance Club as well. I was a student ambassador for 2 years. I was a peer coach guiding fellow students through their academic and professional journeys, just to demonstrate my exceptional leadership and commitment to fostering inclusion and equity. But prior to my MBA, I worked in the financial service industry for about 9 years. I acquired managerial skills in operations, credit risk, and compliance. I also pioneered several initiatives around starting an online female beauty store, a nonprofit that caters to children and the underserved, women in the community in Lagos. But currently, I serve on the board of Illinois Center for Autism, leveraging my financial background to support, the cause of that organization. And at the moment, I'm making significant impact as a finance manager at Amazon. Yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, next we have Vanessa Lee. She's a senior associate at Alvarez & Marsal. So over to you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Tony. Hi, everyone. I've been at Alvarez & Marsal for almost 2 years now. I'm in the private equity performance improvement group. And prior to that, I was at Alex Partners in the restructuring practice. And that's my first job after Simon Business School. I've always wanted to pivot into consulting post-business school, and that's what I have done. And I would say it's difficult to get into consulting for anyone. And as an international student, it's even more difficult. So if anyone has specific questions about consulting, please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. All right, last but not least, we have Sneha, and she is a product lead at Indeed. So Sneha, over to you.
Thanks, Tony. Hello, everyone. I'm Sneha Ghosh. I'm calling in from San Francisco today. I'm originally from India, and my focus during my undergrad was on electrical engineering. Although I was very interested in entrepreneurship, and that is when I got my first job, basically starting a small business, which was a restaurant, while doing my undergrad. So it was really fun, gave me firsthand experience of running and understanding how difficult it is to do an MBA. To start a small business. After my undergrad, I joined Schneider Electric, worked as an electrical engineer, and grew up in that ladder. That got me very curious about getting a broader perspective of how a business works, which is when I wanted to do an MBA. One thing that MBA does to you is basically helps you understand how to get you out of the comfort zone, which is basically preparing you for what's coming next. We'll talk more about that today. But post MBA, I basically joined as a product manager at Salesforce and eventually worked at Gusto. And right now, I am a product lead at Indeed. Very excited to be here. We'll try to support as much as possible. If you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn to talk more.
Thank you very much. Okay, everyone. So I know we're going to have an amazing conversation. As audience questions come up, please feel free to put them in the Q&A feature of Zoom rather than the chat, just so they don't get lost. So we should have some time for audience questions at the end. So add them to that Q&A. Okay, so let's get started with our panelist questions here. Okay, so our first question, we're going to go through all of our panelists, but we'll start with Oluwatosin, then we'll go to Sneha, then Vanessa. So how did you find professional opportunities that were aligned with your career interests? Were there any resources specifically that helped you in this process? So Oluwatosin, we'll start off with you.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I hope you can hear me very well.
Yep, sounds great.
Okay, all right, awesome. So as I said, prior to my MBA, I worked in the bank for about 9 years. I knew I wanted to do an MBA because I felt, I think it's time for me to move on. I had done my undergrad in engineering, but then I moved to the banking industry and I wanted to transition back to the tech space. And I thought, okay, I think an MBA would be a great opportunity to harness both my experience prior to MBA and then what I want to do moving to the tech space. But for me to be able to do this, I had to think of the various opportunities that were available for me. And so I decided to choose the career path of the transitioner. But for this to happen, for me to get my job, my preferred role, I decided to attend a lot of pre-MBA opportunities that were available. I applied early enough to those opportunities. And when I put my applications in, the next thing I did was to leverage my career center to ensure that it helped me reviewing my resume, ensuring that when I submitted and applied to those opportunities, they were ready and available for me to be called for interviews. Now, when I got called for interviews, what I did was to leverage my alumni network, preparing me for the interviews, sharpening my skill set, even though school had not started. And because of that, I was able to get about 3 offers, from different spaces. But at that point, I had to make my decision. I got as of course, Amazon, I was transitioning. I also got in finance, Citibank, but because I knew what I wanted in my MBA, I wanted to transition. So I went with Amazon. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Sneha.
So, when I was doing my MBA, there were a few people who already knew what they wanted to do. But I was one of them who was trying to figure it out. So the approaches that I took was generally, it was to first know what my constraints are. The constraints that I had was in terms of visa sponsorship, location, timelines. These are very personal things to you and based on your profile and things that you want to do in the future. So I think it's just good to know about it. That's like the first step. The second step is knowing what are the various professional opportunities available out there based on your past experience. So you were an engineer. So does it make sense for you to kind of think about 2 options, which could be in tech, one could be in consulting, those kind of things. So based on my experience, I was an electrical engineer. I tried to think that, should I go back to that industry again? Or is it possible for me to get into consulting, which was my first preference at that time? And you have to kind of decide based on your conversation that you have with people to understand like how easy or difficult it is to get into these roles. The most important thing you do basically here is know what is your plan A and your plan B. always have like a plan B to ensure, like in this economic environment, right? You always need to ensure like have a backup option. So first option is what you try for, you network, you work really hard for. And the second option is something which could be a subset of the preparation that you're doing. So for example, when I was preparing for product management, I knew project management could be something that I could prepare for. This is just one example, and it will differ based on the kind of roles and your kind of skill set. So I think that's like your second most important thing to do. And the last thing is basically you have to network. I just want to call out that networking is one of the biggest challenge that I had in terms of, when I came to this in this new environment. The way recruitment works in India is you have very standard process. The companies come to the campus, they ask all the students beyond a particular GPA to come interview, and you go through the process. Here, you have to basically network to essentially get a seat at that table. So you have to ensure you are talking to people, take help of your alum network, reach out to them, practice having calls and asking good questions. And I think that is the one that requires a bit of a learning, and which is where you should seek for most support. Last thing I wanted to call out is a lot is changing, especially if you are focused on the tech side. So a lot has been changing with the advent of AI. So there are like certain things that there are like new roles coming in. So it might be good to kind of research on what are these roles. For example, I'm hearing a lot about cybersecurity right now. That is like some of the roles that will be in demand in future. So these are the kind of steps and strategies I used when I was kind of recruiting in 2018, 19.
Those are amazing tips. Thank you. And Vanessa.
Thank you. And thanks to ladies. I think you already covered a lot of the points that I wanted to say. I guess we all had very similar experience or struggles. But I would say three things. First of all, those pre-MBA conferences and programs are essential if you haven't started your programs just yet. Those are the first steps for you to get to know the company, and in the process, get to know yourself, like know what you want to do. For me specifically, I majored in finance and accounting in undergrad. I worked at Ernst & Young for a couple of years. I'm a CPA in China. I was born and raised in China. I lived my entire life there, but I know that I wanted to do consulting. I know I wanted to come to the US and work here. So I was very targeted. I went into all the pre-MBA conferences, already know that I wanted to do consulting. But what I didn't know is there are so many types of consulting. So I used those conferences to figure out which type of consulting I wanted to do. So that helped me narrow down my targets. And then the second thing is leverage your alumni network. That is so important. Like they already mentioned, networking is so important, especially for consulting that is a client-facing job. You have to have your own network. That, for me, that was the only way that I could ever broke into this space because I came from a non-target school. So the third point is leverage your alumni network, but don't let that network limit you. Reach out to all other kinds of people. You can always find a connection with people. They don't have to go to the same school with you, or they can have other things that's in common with you. Never be afraid of reaching out to people. Use those pre-MBA conferences. Ask them to connect you with more people in their firm. Go to coffee chats with them, just figure out different ways to build your own network. When I came to the US, I didn't even have a LinkedIn profile. And now I looked at it, I have over 1,000 connections and I know every single one of them. So you need to go for it.
Yes, I love that so much. So I'm definitely hearing that common theme of networking, even if it's kind of a scary thing at first, just kind of try it, put yourself out there and see what happens. Okay, thank you all. So moving on to the next question, we are going to go to Sneha for this one. Can you, and you touched on this a little bit, but can you further describe your research process when it came to identifying which organizations were able to recruit and sponsor international candidates?
Yeah, I think knowing which organization sponsor kind of becomes an important and a prerequisite when you are preparing for a particular company. So one of the standard and the most well-known resource is USCIS's website, which talks about the employers who sponsor. So you can go to that website, search for a company, and you will know which companies do sponsor, for which location, and a lot of context can be gained from there. The second thing that happens is this additional, because of an additional nuance, which is a company can sponsor for a certain role, may not sponsor for the other role. So for such kind of a thing, you have to rely on job search applications like LinkedIn or Indeed. They have a specific filter, or you can even search for like an H-1B job that gives you basically all the jobs that are active, which allow sponsorship. It is generally available on the job title. So if you are trying to look for the job search, like from a job role perspective, these are the tools that will be helpful. I think in general, the college campus, like the College Career Management Center, as well as your alum network, are definitely one of the useful resources you have at this time. Like, for example, there might be some tribal context around it. For example, we know that big tech does sponsor for most of the roles. So, but that is something that you will know, like by talking to people in general. So those kind of things, right? Lastly, I think recruiters are one of the resources that you can also leverage to know if a company sponsors or not. It's generally a little bit awkward in the beginning to ask them, hey, do you sponsor? But I think this is something that people are becoming more and more aware of. And this is a question they themselves generally ask you. If not, that is where you should generally confirm if they can sponsor or not. One thing to note here is generally, when you are looking for internship, you have the F1 CPT, which basically allows you to work on your internship. You essentially do not need sponsorship for your internship search, but it is preferred because if they extend an offer, you should be able to work there. So that's why you should always try to go for an internship that do sponsor. If you are going for a degree that is in STEM, then they provide you, I think, 2 years of like OPT after graduation. So it is definitely an advantage if you are like going for a STEM degree. But this basically 2 to 3 years is taken for you to ensure that you apply for H-1Bs, because it takes a long time to even get an H-1B visa. But these are like the high level tips that I can share. But I think the best resources, again, like USCIS, go to LinkedIn or Indeed to really know which roles have sponsorship. And lastly, rely on your alum network and your career management center.
Great tips. Thank you so much, Sneha. Okay, our next question will go to Oluwatosin and then Vanessa. So how did you uniquely promote your individual knowledge, skills, and abilities to potential employers? To what extent did you incorporate kind of your pitch throughout your interactions with company representatives? So Oluwatosin, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I said prior that I had about 9 years experience in the bank. They were in diverse spaces. I had in operations, I had in risk, I had in compliance and all. And so when I was coming for the MBA, I had to bucketize every one of them. And then I had a pitch for each of these experiences. And so when I was networking, I had a pitch that I sold to each of my employers. I knew I wanted to be a career switcher, meaning that I wanted to be in the tech space, specifically Amazon. But then when I was talking to Amazon, I had to bring out that aspect of my experience that would connect with Amazon. When I was interviewing with Citibank, I had to bring out my pitch and my experiences that would connect with Citibank and allow me to function and thrive on that desk, right? And so by doing that, it made all the employers to understand my expertise and the skill set that I was going to provide to every one of them, leveraging all of my experiences and bucketizing everything based on who I was talking to, having a pitch per experience and leveraging that. Yeah, so
That's a great tip, kind of tailoring that pitch depending on who you're talking to. Thank you. Vanessa, what would you like to add?
I think the key word here is storytelling, especially for consulting. You can have all kinds of skill set that's directly or indirectly linked into consulting, but the way to put your best foot forward is to wrap yourself around a story that let the companies see you in the lens that they are trying to hire. Like, look at the job description, what they're looking for. Do you have connected skills that can fit into those buckets? If they're looking for someone with data analytical skills and you were in marketing before, then tell them you leveraged market data and did this and that. I think having that storytelling skill or work on that is one of the most important things you can do for yourself in your behavioral interviews. Something specifically for me is that I was in professional services before, but I was never in consulting. I was in assurance audit, so I know what it is like to work with clients, so I leveraged that a lot. But I don't have the specific consulting skills, the strategic analysis. I was doing audit. So I have to pivot away from focusing on that. I have to emphasize that I have the professional services experience and I know financial statements and I know how to work with different parties. That's how I landed my restructuring consulting full-time job. Thank
Such
you.
a good point. Such a good point. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to go back to Oluwatosin for this next question. So how can MBA students effectively plan their careers around OPT opportunities, considering potential changes in regulations or economic conditions? So anything that potential students should be kind of thinking about?
Sure. Thank you, Tony. First of all, I want every one of us to know that the new administration, that's President Trump, he's not against immigrants. He's for legal immigrants, and we are legal immigrants. So he's happy to work with us. He's happy to have us in the system. And because he's happy to work with legal immigrants, it means that we coming for the MBA, we have to harness the OPT opportunity. When you're making your applications to schools, it is important to look out for schools that have STEM certified MBAs, right? When we say STEM certified MBAs, those are MBAs that allow you additional 24 months beyond the OPT of 12 months. So that means you have the opportunity of 36 months to work and contribute to the system, learn your own experience, share your expertise as well. And by doing that, within the 36 months, you can have the opportunity to process your own permanent residency by yourself, or if your company chooses to do that for you, it is possible. So basically, we are rest assured that the current administration is happy with legal immigrants, which we are through the MBA. The OPT allows 36 months for us to contribute our expertise, and through that medium, you can by yourself either process for your green card, that's your permanent residence, or the company that you're working for, would help you in doing that. Yeah.
Thank you for that perspective. All right. Next question, we are going to go to Sneha. So we've heard a lot about networking. How did you make sure you were getting in touch with the right people? How did you narrow down who you were going to focus in on with your networking outreach?
Sure. So one thing to do before you kind of start your networking to get the job or internship is know what the career ladder looks like. So my plan A was product management, and I kind of learned what does the various roles and what does the ladder means. Like you grow from PM, senior PM, group PM, and then you grow to become like directors, and that's how you grow in a company. This is important because when you're networking, you should know who is the person who starts the hiring process. So so now let's break it down, right? So there are three categories when you are networking. The first one is people who do not have the power to hire, but they are the one who can guide you the best. They are someone who just got a job at the company that you are dreaming to get into, right? You can ask them about like, hey, how did you prepare? What are the things you did, right? So they are the people who will be most supportive, and it is not really networking, some way networking, but you should basically talk to them to know the lay of the land. You should ask them questions around like who generally hires. This is something that may differ from company to company, but in general, in like a mid-sized tech company, for example, you will learn that product directors are the one who generally hire. Sometimes you have like senior managers also who can also be hiring. So just know that these are the people who it's like kind of crucial to introduce yourself to. So now then you know, like, okay, so product directors are the one that you need to talk to. Now, what kind of questions do you need to ask to know if they're actually hiring or not? You can't just ask, are you hiring? So you have to ask them questions around what are the growth plans? What does the funding look like? What kind of projects you might be looking at? And obviously don't get into the specific because nobody would want to share that because people have their own roadmaps. But ask them about like general guidance around growth in the teams and things like that. That will give you a good idea about who might be hiring. And that's it. Those are the people you have to ensure you build like very good relationship with. Don't annoy them with a lot of messages, but ensure that you're building good relationship with them. Ensure that you're adding value. If they are working on, what they are focusing on, send some articles or share your thoughts, or maybe write an article on your own on LinkedIn or something, which might be valuable to the discussion that you might have had with this person. So they are the one who will start the job requisite, right? And they are the one who will start the hiring process. Next, it goes to who says the final yes or no, and that's a VP in a company. So generally, when you are networking, it's kind of tricky because not everyone would be open to be like talking because they are like extremely busy. But if you meet them in person due to some common networking opportunity, like I think that's when you should try to build a relationship. They are generally the one who would take like who would give like the final yes or no. Now, all that I shared right now, it generally holds true for like a product management role. So you have to identify based on the role that you are applying or you want to get into, what does that ladder looks like? Who is the person who you can treat as kind of your friend or a buddy? Who is the person who starts hiring, or what does that role looks like? And then who is the one who takes the final decision? Once you have kind of this idea, you know how to proceed into networking. Generally, the people who are not your buddies, like the directors and VP, you should be a lot more prepared before you go into that call. So don't waste an opportunity. Ensure that you're very well prepared. Use any AI tools right now that is available to you, and ensure that you have good questions to ask.
Thank you for that breakdown. That was awesome. And to anyone in the audience who, if that was overwhelming to you, or you're like, I don't know where to start, how do I figure that out? A lot of times, your career services office on campus can help you start to break that down a little bit as well. So, but Sneha, that was great. Thank you. So Vanessa, you talked a little bit already about the alumni network from your academic institution. So can you tell us a little bit more about the ways in which you were supported by that group?
First of all, shout out to Simon Business School and its Career Center because they do such a good job organize all the alumni events. So in the beginning, you don't even have to do anything. You just go to all the events and meet all the people you can meet. But kidding, that was just kidding. You do have to do something. I would say before you meet anyone in person or over a phone call, research, looked at their LinkedIn profile. If they are on their company's website, look at that, look at their project experience, try to find something common that you can bond over with that person before you head into the conversation. I think especially in the client-facing consulting world, that personal connection is so crucial. If you happen to know, oh, this guy posted something on LinkedIn about a Formula One race, and then you happen to like that, bring it up in your first connection. It will set you apart with all the other people who are jumping in there with an elevator pitch about their background. And I think the other important thing for people, especially if you're going to like a larger school, don't limit yourself within the business school alumni network. There is a much bigger alumni network out there outside of business school or outside of the MBA program. For example, the reason why I got the Alex Partners opportunity was because I connected with someone who went to U of R for undergrad 8 years ago, before I even set foot in Simon. So I connected with him and we just hit it off, and then he introduced me to a managing director at the firm, and then we went from there. But he never went to Simon Business School, but he went to U of R. So I think that was our common connection. I consider him to be part of my alumni network. I would always recommend you to look at that bigger network.
Thank you. Great advice. Okay. Our last question for our panel before we move into audience Q&A. We're going to go to Oluwatosin for this one. So to what extent did you participate in career-related events, activities, or conferences? And which ones did you find to be the most helpful?
Thank you, Tony. I think I'll just classify them into two, the pre-MBA and the ones during my MBA. So prior to MBA, I ensured that, first of all, I updated my LinkedIn. That's the first thing I want to advise everyone. Make sure that your LinkedIn is ready for you to be seen before you even start attending anything, any negotiations, any discussions. And so after that, I ensured I attended pre-MBA events so that I could connect with employers to understand what they were looking for early enough, even before the MBA started. Now, during my MBA, I attended likes of the MBA Summit. This was something that was organized by my school, where they brought in different recruiters to help us in-house, to sharpen us and prepare us for recruiting. And of course, God also offers. That was one of them. The other one during MBA was case competition. So the case competition is an avenue where you meet with employers. They kind of sponsor business cases where different schools come together to solve those business cases. And after the competition, people get awards, maybe for the top 3 or top 4. But beyond the awards, right, you get to meet with these employers, you get to meet with a lot of people, and then you can network there and get your email. Once you get your email into their system, you get to get notifications when they're employment. But my favorite is conferences, especially the Forte Conference and all the other things like the National Black Conference and the others. Why was it my favorite? Because it was through the Forte Conference that I got connected to Amazon. It was through the National Black Conference that I got connected to what they call Apple. During Forte Conference, I got connected to Citibank. I got connected to EcoBank because I was able to network with them. And the moment I networked with them, I got my email in their databases. And when their vacancies were out, I got notified, applied. But while I applied, I also ensured that I was getting ready to be called for interview. So applying, getting connected to those people through the conferences, that is fundamental. But beyond that, you have to now ensure that you are ready. When you're waiting, keep working with your alums to sharpen your skill sets so that when you have the opportunity to interview, having networked through these conferences and case competitions and the summit, you are found, capable and qualified.
Thank you. So glad you had such a great experience with Forte Conference. I love it. Okay, so we are going to move on to audience Q&A. So please put your questions in the Q&A feature rather than the chat. And I'm going to open these up to anyone who wants to jump in. Feel free to unmute. So I want to ask about geographic location and whether or not that kind of played a part in your job search, and if so, how?
I can start. It played a big part for me, both personally and in terms of my career. I always wanted to live in New York City, and that was one of the few places I was looking at for post-MBA jobs. Luckily, that is also one of the hubs for a lot of career opportunities. So it kind of worked out that way. And the reason why I wanted to be in New York is because, well, first of all, it's very exciting. Second of all, I'm in finance and I want to do consulting, and a lot of the finance people are here. So naturally, you will have a sea of opportunities and all the connections you can make in the world. So I think ask yourself, where do you really want to live? If city life is just excruciating for you, maybe look into Seattle and you can go do more outdoor stuff. And second of all, ask yourself, where are all the job opportunities? And the reason why I framed it that way is because job is not your life. You need to be living in a place that you can actually be happy in before you can go do a job with that healthy, happy mindset. I think a lot of times people flip that. They look at job opportunities first and then think about where they personally are interested in living. In my opinion, that is a huge mistake, because that's a very short-sighted, short-term decision.
Thank you, Vanessa. That's a really great perspective. Anyone want to add anything? Okay. So this might be another one for Vanessa. This person's asking specifically about consulting. But if anyone else wants to jump in, please feel free. What was the biggest hurdle for you to kind of break into that industry?
Can I give the most consulting answer and say I have more than one biggest reason? I think the biggest one is network connection for me personally, because again, I came from a non-target school. None of the consulting firms that I was looking for will actually come to campus and recruit directly from campus. So the only way I can get into those firms is by networking and have partner or managing director level people refer me before they even look at my resume. So that was definitely the biggest hurdle. But I would also say that you need to be prepared for the interviews that you're potentially getting. So being prepared for all the case interviews, all the behavioral interview questions, it is not as much of a hurdle, but something that people overlook. Because in your early stages of business school, everyone talks about, oh, network, especially for international students, you need to build this network to get opportunity. But don't lose sight on what's next, because the bigger portion of the recruiting process is the interview. So you have to be ready for that.
Thank you. That was a great segue into the next question that I was going to ask you all. So this one's a little more general, but during the interview process or even during the networking process, I guess some of you gave some examples already, but what kinds of questions would you recommend asking in that process that helps the employer see you as a potential candidate or shows them that you're genuinely interested?
I think it's important to know what the open roles are and know what kind of skill sets they are looking for. We were recently hiring somebody for our team, and somebody reached out to me with that relevant experience, and it was like an in-person event, and she just mentioned about it, and that was like very interesting because I'm curious now, what was her experience, you know? So I think I'm not sure if she looked at the job roles, but what she said was basically more focused to the broader industry that I am in. Even that helps though. So I think the few things that I would recommend is know what the open roles are, which one more are interesting to you, and what kind of skill sets are they looking for. So just be a little bit aware about that, and then you have like a general industry experience or something specific to that role that you have done, which you should try to kind of bring in during your discussions? I understand that these are like high level, but these are the general points that I have seen being very helpful.
I want to add something to that. Some do's and don'ts. I think being on the other side for 4 years now, I really appreciate it when people ask me targeted questions. When they obviously looked at what I do already before they ask me any question, and then ask me that question. For example, I'm in private equity performance improvement. If you're coming here and you're talking to me, you already know that I work in private equity, and you ask me, what does a public company do? I don't know how to answer you that. And when you ask me a very general question that I know you can ask every single person in the room, I also don't feel like you've done your research and you've devoted time into this. For example, if you ask me, what do you do? That's very general. I don't know where to start to answer that question. I don't know what I do. I get up and go to a 6 a.m. workout class. Is that what you're asking? Probably not. So be very specific and target it. Another don't that I don't appreciate is when people start the first conversation with, do you sponsor? I think get to know me a little bit, get to know the company a little bit, the role a little bit before you even ask that. I get it. Sometimes people are thinking, oh, I should just save time. If they don't sponsor, I don't even bother to learn what they're doing. Again, I think that's a very short term and short-sighted opinion. Get to know what's out there. Even if they don't sponsor, well, maybe you don't need sponsorship in a couple years. Who knows that? So that's my general do's and don'ts.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Vanessa and Shneha. So I think I'll just add a little bit, which is follow up on what Vanessa said, but this time it's on the company, right? Try and go through maybe the 10K, or the financials in general. Just check for the CEO remarks, check what the company is doing, and then look at your own expertise and see where can I tap into, where can I connect to them? And then you can ask questions around that aspect. Oh, what are you all doing around this then? I'm interested in this. When you show concern and interest, rather, in what the company's future and focus is on, it makes you an interested candidate.
Yes, love that. That research up front is so important. And Vanessa, you started to touch on this too, but we have another audience question. And one of your don'ts was don't ask about sponsorship right away. Do the three of you have any tips on when to bring that up in the interview process or in that networking process? What is a more appropriate time to do that?
Sorry, I can start this off. I think I start talking with companies. I don't immediately start talking with recruiters. Most of the times I start talking with hiring managers, the managing directors, partners in the firm first. Sometimes they don't really have the answer for whether they sponsor or not, how the legal process works. So they're not the best people to ask those questions for. And later, maybe in the middle of the stage, when I'm ready to apply, when they're ready to refer me, I ask the recruiter that question. I think recruiters are the best people to ask those questions for because they are the ones who really know the details.
Okay, so I think I would add to what Vanessa said, right? But for me, I'll look at it from this angle. First of all, use your in-house resources. For example, my school, Olin, we had a platform where we could see the companies that sponsor. Now, when you do that, you're able to streamline those companies, right? And then after that, if there's still certain companies that you're not sure if they sponsor, you can use alums, maybe that work in that particular company to find out what's the situation here. And once you've done all of those things and you still do not have an answer, then it's okay for you to maybe ask towards the end of your conversation, right? Because things change. I've seen companies that do not sponsor naturally, they have to sponsor people eventually, right? So it's okay to just follow that procedure and you'll be good.
I would +1 to what both of you said. In my experience, like I've always relied on recruiters to give me this information on if they sponsor or not. And yeah, relying on the resources that is available to you to know if the company sponsor or not is also a really good way.
Well, thank you all so much for that perspective. And thank you for a very informative session. I think this was a really great breakdown of so many different topics related to an international student's career search. And I hope our audience learned a lot from you all today. I'm going to share my screen quickly here. So make sure that you're following Forte on social. Make sure that you go back and watch the recording of this, which will be on our website. Feel free to check out all of the other recordings of our fantastic virtual sessions on other topics as well. Those are all there for you. But I want to give one more huge thank you to our panel today. You all are incredible, incredible alums, and we appreciate your time. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Reach out with questions.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you all.